A true story from just a few weeks ago. As we reached the waning hours of our second night Seder, my 3.5-year-old daughter, who's right back there, was given her vital and important task to go and open the door for Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet. And off she sped, running to open the door, going to go open the door, and we, the adults, turned back and began to finish our recently poured third cup of wine. And we were ready to continue with business as usual, but then she surprised us. "He was here!" we heard, as she toddled back in, delighted, hands filled, and to my perspective, completely obstructed by an immediately recognizable, gigantic brown cardboard box from Amazon. And just like you, universally, the table burst into laughter. Elijah had come, Elijah had gone, and he'd left our host the fetch toy that they'd purchased for their dogs. Elijah the prophet, for those of us who need a short primer, is a biblical figure who comes into the scene in the northern kingdom of Israel during the reign of the king Achav and his queen Jezebel. Elijah gets in a lot of trouble. He causes a lot of trouble. He ventures all the way down to Mount Sinai, has a conversation with God, and then, after raising up his primary disciple, he is lifted still alive into heaven in a whirlwind atop God's fiery chariot. The prophet Malachi, followed by our sages and our rabbis, explains that Elijah will return on that great, holy, and awesome day, and with him will come the Messiah, the Moshiach. And in the meantime, while we wait, the Talmud is filled with stories of the prophet Elijah appearing in disguise, teaching folk wisdom and passing on vital life lessons to each person who recognizes him. It is this second role of Elijah as the herald of the Messiah that gets him the zechut, the merit, to be invited to all of our simchas. When a baby boy has a bris, when we do a naming, we put out a chair for Elijah. Zeh kiseh shel Eliyahu zachor latov. This is the chair of Elijah. May he be remembered for good, and may he remember to show up soon. And bop, boop, we put the baby into the chair so that maybe a little bit of that Mashiach energy will get imbued into them. And classically, of course, one could also make the very real observation that it's natural every single parent who is Jewish looks at their child and says, well, my child might as well be the Messiah. How can you not? We've been doing this ritual for the better part of 1,000 years. And of course, as Shabbat comes to a close at Havdalah, that is another moment when we invite in Elijah, Eliyahu Hanavi, all right? Come quickly. Maybe this is the week that you bring the Messiah. Shabbat is over, the new week is beginning, and at the very first possible moment, before anything else can be said or done, literally as soon as we've extinguished the candle, the 3 stars of the week are just barely peeking in through the dark. We don't even have the chance to turn on our TVs or our phones yet. Maybe this is the week that Elijah will come. And of course, there's the redemption of the world and the freedom of our people, which for thousands of years were theologically linked. To the Jew who was living in exile and dreaming of redemption and safety and homecoming, the Passover Seder was proof that what had happened once could happen again. That God can overturn the greatest powers of the world and bring the Jewish people to their home. In fact, that God can overturn the greatest powers of the world and make order, Seder, out of chaos. Which is what makes the moment, right after that third cup of wine, on the night of Seder, the perfect moment to open the door for Elijah. Here is our holiday of freedom. Here is our moment of liberation. We've told the story. We praised the name. We feasted with the hungry. We opened our home to the stranger. We've made a tiny vision of the messianic time in our very own home. Open the door. Open the door for Elijah. We go, we flip the door wide open, and we know that he's not going to be there. And that's what makes my daughter finding that Amazon package so shockingly funny. Because we open the door telling ourselves the doorway is going to be empty. We know that nobody is going to be there, and we know it so deeply in our core that we are delighted for a moment that someone was, even if it's not who we wanted. And I'm going to phrase this very carefully. We know that when we open the door, nobody is standing there. But she, my 3.5-year-old little girl, did not know that. When I told her, go open the door for Elijah, all of us gathered around the table to finish the Seder. But she alone opened the door in the belief that Elijah would be on the other side. It is not fair to compare the hard-won and challenged faith of an adult with the simple trust and fresh eyes of a child. It is not realistic to ask a grown person who has experienced year after year that the door is empty to suddenly believe that someone will be standing there. And so it would not be okay for my next point to be, next year you should all have the same certainty as my 3-year-old. But I do want us to imagine, even if only for a moment, what it would be like next year, right before we open that door, if we simply hoped. And I'm not talking about messianic hope. I'm not talking about a messianic hope that someone else, Elijah, or Mashiach, or God will come and fix the world, repairing all of our mistakes. But rather, what if we opened the door to the possibility that we don't actually know the outcome of our most simple and innocuous actions? What if we took a moment and hoped and saw the miraculous as possible? The Jewish people have long understood hope. Hope is what motivates tshuva, repentance, because without hope that people can be better, there's no need to atone. Hope is what feeds tikkun olam, because without hope that the world can ever be fixed, we don't have to seek its redemption. Hope is the core of many of our biblical texts. Abraham and Sarah hope for a child in the face of a world that denies them. Moses and the Israelites hope for freedom in the face of endless slavery. And Job, perhaps to our surprise, Job is a figure of hope as well, because Job holds on to his hope that when he says, I am innocent, others will realize it is true. In exile, the Jewish people maintained their hope of coming home. And Zionism is a movement of liberation and hope. A hope that is realized in the state of Israel, and a hope that we literally sing into the world. Hatikva. Rabbi Jonathan Sacks of blessed memory writes, to be a Jew is to be an agent of hope. Every ritual, command, syllable of the Jewish story is a protest against escapism, resignation, the blind acceptance of fate. Judaism, the religion of the free God, is a religion of freedom. Jewish faith is written in the future tense. It is a belief in a future that is not yet, but yet could be if only we heeded God's call. The name of the Jewish future is hope. We are so good at hope. So as I conclude this evening, let me ask you this. How many years has it been since you really hoped Elijah would be on the other side of that door? And wouldn't you like it if that changed? Hope is the promise that just because something is the way it is now, it does not need to be that way next time. We have a full year till our next Seder. But in 25 hours, when Shabbat ends, we will again invite Elijah into this world. What a wonderful chance to practice our hope. Shabbat Shalom.